Joined by Mr. Arsen Ostrovsky, who's an attorney and also the CEO of the International Legal Forum. Mr. Ostrovsky, what is the reason behind this flare-up of violence? We saw the repeated raids with the State of Israel has been carrying out into the Palestinian territories, and now this shooting that has happened in front of a synagogue.
Look, I think what we saw last night was something that is no other way to describe it other than a morally deprived act of pure evil. The Palestinian terrorist came to Jerusalem. He waited outside the synagogue on Shabbat, the holy day of prayer for Jews. And I should also add that yesterday was also the Holocaust Remembrance Day, which makes these actions even more heinous. He waited for the worshippers to arrive and some to come out of the synagogue, and then proceeded to massacre them. 7 people have been murdered. A number of others have been injured. Look, these kinds of heinous acts of evil, the carnage that we're seeing in Jerusalem, this doesn't occur in a vacuum. Such acts of really pitiless slaughter, they're really direct result of this pervasive Palestinian infrastructure of incitement led by President Mahmoud Abbas, as well as Islamic Jihad and whom you've quoted, that instill this kind of worldview justifying these kinds of gruesome acts of violence. That is your cause for what has transpired in the last 24 hours.
And also, I need to ask you this question, because what we are witnessing, especially in the course of the last 3, 4, 5 days, is this increased instances of violence. What's actually going wrong, and why is it that these instances of violence are happening, especially when Israel has been carrying out raids deep inside these Palestinian territories to try and bring the militants out? But despite of that, these incidents of violence are increasing.
Look, they are increasing, but with all due respect, I don't think there is any basis for comparison with what we've seen, for example, in Jenin a few days ago, and just the other night in Jerusalem. Jenin has become a hotbed of Palestinian terrorism and violence, from which many terror attacks led by Islamic Jihad have emanated that have killed many Israeli civilians and soldiers. The operation that Israel carried out only a few days ago, and this is where the real difference is, specifically was a specific terrorism operation that targeted Islamic Jihad terrorists. Whereas the attack we saw yesterday, we saw a Palestinian gunman and terrorist specifically target civilians and worshippers in a synagogue. That is the real difference.
All right, you're pointing out the difference, but a lot of them are also pointing out the possibility and, in fact, what is happening in terms of collateral damage. You say that Israel is going after only these militants of the Hamas and Islamic Jihad. There was a 61-year-old woman who was, in fact, killed during the raid which Israel carried out in Jenin. How does Israel even justify that?
Anytime civilians die in conflict is a tragedy, but the difference is Israel aims only at military and terrorist targets, whereas Islamic Jihad, and we saw this including from the scenes just the other day, what they do is that essentially commit a double war crime. They attack Israeli civilians whilst hiding within Palestinian civilian infrastructure and using Palestinian women, children as civilian shields. So with all due respect, as horrible as it is when civilians do die, when the Palestinian Islamic Jihad and other terror groups use civilians as shields, the responsibility and the legal culpability rests solely upon them in these circumstances.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Ostrovsky, for joining us and getting us those insights there.
Thank you.